Minister, what do you make of Winston Peters, who's just there behind you, his criticism of the use of the C word, in the House?
Look, I think it's very odd, you know. I would hope that his criticism would be of the misogyny that was hurled at female cabinet ministers, which is the whole reason why I took a mirror to Labor to show them the double standard.
Labor have accused you of using the C word as a distraction, a deliberate distraction from the real issue. Your response?
That's not the case at all. Really, I was just disappointed that we had a former Minister for Women who was intentionally bringing misogynistic abuse that senior cabinet ministers had been receiving into the debating chamber. And if that sort of message was to be given to me, I thought it was important to respond in kind, not just for myself, but for all of the rest of my cabinet colleagues and for young women across New Zealand who shouldn't expect that if they wanted to stand for Parliament, they should be subjected to abuse.
Have you spoken to Winston Peters about this, or has he spoken to you?
No, I haven't had a conversation with him.
Would you expect him taking such a public stance on the use of your language to actually come and talk to you about it before talking to media?
No, I never really have an expectation to have conversations with Winston. But I do think people do need to acknowledge that the abuse and misogyny that female senior cabinet ministers have received over the last few days has not been acceptable. And we should expect respect and decorum across the House. And I want to make it really clear, I'm not a sweary person. That's not in my nature, but I'm taking a stand because of the abuse that other female senior cabinet ministers have received.
And how would you characterise your relationship with Winston Peters?
I think we get on pretty good.
Do you accept that you could have made the point without using the C word?
Well, I think the media also need to question whether or not they would have reported the misogynistic abuse that us female members of cabinet have received if I didn't make that claim. If you look at in the past, legacy media have time and time again asked for people to be respectful for senior ministers. If you think of the abuse that Jacinda Ardern received. But when it's a woman on the right, and when it's senior cabinet ministers on the right, there's been crickets.
So, but what you're saying is you were provocative to prompt attention from the media.
No, what I'm saying is the misogynistic abuse that female senior members of this side of the House has received has been abhorrent. It has not been widely reported. And I think that is a disgrace.
So you're saying that you needed to say the C word in order for the media to actually take notice. That's what you're saying.
Yes.
How did your meeting with the CTU go?
Oh, look, I think it was quite odd. The feedback that I've received since then, it's pretty weird that you have people wanting to have meetings with you and then hold press conferences afterwards. And I think in part maybe they mistook it for the budget lockup because a lot of the questions that I received weren't actually things that I could respond to. But look, I don't really go around talking about the conversations that I've had in the meetings that I hold. And I hope in some ways this gives a little bit of perspective as to why I don't hold regular meetings with the CTU, because it's pretty weird and odd that people hold press conferences about the things that I say in my meetings.
Hit by the mace.
Are we guys finished? Can we get to it or no? Still want to ask a question?
Can I take it then that there won't be a repeat meeting?
I'm definitely not holding regular scheduled meetings if they're just going to have press conferences after each of my
I've
meetings.
said that it seems like you're passing the buck over the pay equity legislation changes. What do you think about that?
I would disagree. Like I said, I think they mistook the meeting that they are having with me with the budget lockup. I'm not the Minister of Finance. I'm not responsible for the budget, and they need to wait for that information.
I mean, I'm quite sure they didn't think it was the budget lockup. The budget's next week. But anyway, that's by the by. They also said that the impression that you gave them was that you have received advice that the 33 claims that have to be restarted can be restarted, so all 33 under the current regime, under the new regime, but that the value of the settlements will be less, lending itself to the savings. Is that correct?
Well, like I say, I don't talk about the conversations that I have in private meetings. I expect all of the meetings I hold to be confidential. But given that they want to go and talk about it, I can't disclose things that I'm not responsible for in terms of the budget numbers and things like that. But it is the case that the advice that I've received does show that a large majority of people who have brought claims in the past would still be able to bring claims into the future.
All 33.
That may or may not be the case, but also I'm not a crystal ball gazer. I can't actually tell which people are going to potentially continue to bring a claim or whether or not they'd like to rescope those. But what I can say is we are intentionally looking to tighten some of the rules from what Labor had so that we can find gender-based discrimination rather than conflation with inflation or other labour market dynamics. And so it could be the case that the comparators that they choose to use may be different in the newer claims, and you've then got to ask the unions, why is it then that they have intentionally used comparators that may give them different figures than that they currently are able to use under still the same regime.
Thank you.
Cool. Thank you.